All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the Survivalist Prepper Show. This week we've got probably kind of a big show, so I think what we're going to do is split it up into two. But you had a conversation with a friend at work about prepping and his ideas of prepping. So I want to go through this, talking about culture shock and why we prepare and why some people don't prepare because of that culture shock. So before we get into that, though, I wanted to mention, make sure and enter the contest. That's going to be, I'm going to announce the winners next week. Probably won't announce the winners, but I'll announce that it's over and tell you how you can find out if you won or not. I'll be sending out emails and stuff too. But the contest is for a couple legacy food packages, the precision holster, the holster right here, and the tack bars. So like I said, next week I'll make sure and have more information on that. The SHTF shop, I've been rearranging everything and redesigning everything. I think it looks pretty cool. And I've been adding a lot of the legacy food products on there. That is kind of a big undertaking because it's just tedious, but I've got quite a bit of stuff on there. Right now I'm working on getting the freeze-dried meats and stuff on there. And then the next part, which is going to be kind of the tedious part, because there's just so many different legacy sides, like the, mashed potatoes, rice, beans, milk, all that different. I mean, just green beans, this and that. I mean, there's just so much different stuff you can get, but there's just a huge variety. So that also helps us at Survivalist Prepper, helps us do what we keep doing. We also have the Academy that helps us do what we do. If you're just getting into prepping, it's a great way to kind of get a lot of information. We give away a lot of information here on the show for free too, but that kind of helps us do what we do. Also, members of the Academy get wholesale prices on all the products we have to offer too, so you can save a lot of money. You can save basically the money you spent on the Academy itself on what you would get with long-term food or bug out bags, all that kind of stuff. So with that though, let's go ahead and start getting into this, because I think this is going to be a pretty long one. This week we're going to talk about some objections people have, because that's basically what this conversation you had was how he just thinks it's, why would you want to do this? Why would you want to do that? And then next week I want to talk about, we were going to do this in one whole show, but I think we need to split it up into two. But
yeah, because you like to take over,
yeah,
and I'll have my conversation, but then you'll have to put in your 2 cents.
I have
worth.
a feeling you'll have a few cents as well. But next week I want to talk about how different people will react. Because we all kind of think about how everybody's going to be coming after our stuff and this and that, but I think there's going to be a lot of different variables that we really need to take into account when we're thinking about that stuff, because not everybody's going to be brutal and vicious, and not everybody's going to be meek, and there's going to be, I hate to say it like this again, but the die-off, all of that different stuff that we need to take into account. And there's going to be people who survive that really have no business. We're going to be going like, how did that person survive?
Because they're lucky.
Yeah, and that plays a role in it too. So let's go ahead and get into some of the prepping objections I've got, and then I want to talk about, first off, what this conversation you had, because my first objection I have here is, this is ridiculous and it's a waste of time.
Right.
And that's kind of what...
But I think we need to give some backstory before we get into that.
Yeah, okay, so go ahead.
Okay.
So here's your 2 cents.
So here's my 2 cents. Woo, my turn. Shut up, Dale. But so I have a coworker at work, and he's a really, really nice guy. And just nonchalant, and I don't know where it came from, just out of the blue, he started asking questions about, about you and what you do. And then I think that kind of got his wheels turning.
Did he have any idea you were a prepper before that?
I don't think so.
So that's what brought it up.
Yeah. And it was funny because he just kind of, like how he approached the subject was kind of, scared, kind of what was my reaction going to be. And he was like, so...
Scared, curious, kind of?
Yeah. Yeah. And didn't want me to think that he's one of those crazy prepper people. So we sat and actually talked. It was over 2 days, because he just started picking my brain. And I guess it was interesting because for you and me, this is what we do. This is life. We enjoy it. So I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah, we kind of take it for granted.
Right.
That we know all this stuff, and why doesn't everybody else?
And why doesn't everybody else want to be like us? Because we're really cool.
Yeah, and smart.
right? So, but it started off and he was like, his big thing was what would happen if there was a nuclear blast. So he was really into the nuclear aspect of it. And then he started saying, because his parents live out this way too, and he was like going, I just don't know if I would want to live if something catastrophic like that happened. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, I don't think I could live like that. He's like, there wouldn't be anything. So basically all the modern conveniences, the internet and going to the grocery store and stuff, that would all be taken away. And he just didn't know if he could live like that.
Well, and that when we first started talking about this, that would raise a real red flag for me when they went straight to nuclear war.
Yeah.
Because, and that might be his perception of preppers and all that, but it's really not. It shouldn't be. If somebody's jumping, points 1, 2, and 3 to get to 4.
No, but he wasn't saying that that's what preppers are preparing for. That's what his personal thing that he was worried about.
Oh,
so
okay.
like if there was a nuclear blast in like Denver or something, and if we were okay where we were at, he's like, I just don't think I could live through that. He's like, because when I go out to my parents' house, it drives me crazy. It's so boring out there. There's nothing to do. I don't want to get up every morning and do all this stuff. I just want to have it done for me. And he's like, how can you want to live like that? Why would you want to live in something like that? And so and then I started explaining to him what we do and why we do it. And I was like, and we've been doing this for a long time. And I was like, why wouldn't you want to live?
Yeah, what are you going to do if you don't have a choice?
Right.
Are you going to off yourself?
Well, and
that just isn't a choice.
But that's what he was saying. He said he would save some bullets for himself and for his family members so they didn't have to live like that. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Well, my harsh opinion is one less person
yeah.
to have to worry about.
But, and what was interesting, because we were talking about how people, would, quote, go to the country or go out to find people and stuff. But he didn't think that way.
He thought, I want nothing to do with that.
Yeah, he was like, I want to stay in the safety of my home. So, okay, he's going to go to a FEMA camp or whatever, waiting for people to take care of him. So that kind of solidified.
Which would be far worse, which is why he doesn't even want to live through it.
Right.
Doesn't want to think about it.
Right. But that solidified in my head of thinking that the people that like him, and he's a really nice guy, but they're not going to want to venture out much further than what they already know. They're going to go in their, their realm of comfort. They're going to stay at home. They're going to turn on their TV over and over again, sit there with the remote going like this, and nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, and stressing out, and
drive up,
all their little trinkets are gone. And,
right, and drive up to Starbucks and wait for Starbucks to open. So, but I guess it's because we do what we do. We make it a part of our every single day life. It is what it is, and we just prepare and that's what we do.
We don't plan on. That's my main thing with that too. Is we don't plan on a nuclear disaster happening.
No,
we plan for it with some of the stuff we do, but it's. I mean, if I'm in ground zero, I'm a ground zero.
Right.
I mean, but if I happen to survive, I'm not gonna kill myself and my family. We're gonna do what we have to do.
You keep looking at my shirt.
It's a beautiful shirt.
Yeah, sorry. Sidetracked.
But there's a caveat to that, too, that you got to mention, that his parents are actually preppers, right? Or consider themselves.
Yeah, they consider themselves prepared. And it was funny how he was explaining to me how they are prepared. So they live on a big piece of land in a subdivision, because out here there's a lot of subdivisions, but they're on 2 acres, 5 acres, 10 acres of land. But they consider it a subdivision. It has a homeowners association, just like the little, postage stamp
unfortunately,
places in town. But they consider themselves to be prepared, and they have, from what he was saying, they have 7 freezers full of food.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. When you said that, I said, what?
Yeah. So
and
I don't know.
He's the same way, too. Did you mention to him, or did he mention that there's no way if the grid goes down?
Actually, we talked about that too, because I asked him, what would you do if you didn't have electricity? And then I started
eat a lot of food.
And I asked him questions. I'm like, because he's like, well, my parents, they think they're prepared, and they have 7 freezers full of food. And I'm like, what are you going to do with all this? That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, do they have a do they have a backup plan? Do they have a battery bank? Do they have a solar, system on their home? He's like, no, they have nothing. So I'm like, okay, so they're
not really prepared.
No, but they're
in their
trying.
minds they are.
They're trying.
But they don't know the process. They don't know the correct ways to do stuff.
No. And in their opinion, that is the correct way. So if nothing goes bad and they have 7, refrigerators or freezers full of food, I mean, first off, food does have an expiration date, even in the freezer. So, I mean, having 7 freezers full of food, that's a lot of food.
Yeah.
It's just on a normal, everyday basis.
Freezer burn
yeah.
junk in 10 years.
So you couldn't even eat it that in 10 years. So what I'm thinking is he's got 7 freezers worth of food. Okay, I'm going to take that food out and I'm going to start dehydrating it. I'm going to start canning it and, preserving it for the long term, because a freezer is not the end all be all for food preservation.
He's actually got a great opportunity to teach his parents, okay, if you're going to be, have all of this food, do it right.
Yeah. But it's interesting to hear other people's perspectives on what it is that you should be preparing for. Why would you even want to prepare? And just getting in the mindset, and you just do it. You do it every day. The gardening, food preservation, different alternative power sources, water sources. And I guess it's just something that we do, and so you just get used to it. But he's like, why would you want to live like that? And my question to him is, why wouldn't you? Yeah,
exactly. And not everything is that bad.
No.
I mean, that's worst case scenario type stuff, but we're talking about, an economic collapse, a depression, stuff like that.
Stuff that's basically happening right
now.
Yeah,
why not? Yeah. Why not make everything a little bit easier if you can?
Right.
And it doesn't take much. You can do as much as little as you want, but it doesn't take much. I think it's interesting that his parents are like that, and that kind of probably skews his opinion one way or the other, right? Because he gets this idea, and then he hears, from TV and all that, preppers this, preppers that, and you are, and understands that you're a rational person. So now he's like, okay, I got my parents over here who have just tons of freezers of food. You got this doomsday prepper show, and now you got you. What's the deal? What's
the real story? He watches The Walking Dead.
Yeah, which is another kind of extreme type thing. But we watch it too for that reason.
Yeah, but it's interesting to me that it seems like he has an open mind and he's thinking about it. He's thinking things aren't quite right and what would I do in that situation. And I don't think he's resolved to the fact that I'm going to put a bullet in my head and my family member's head because I don't want him to live that way.
But that's just what he says.
Yeah.
When push comes to shove,
right,
it's a lot easier to say it than actually do it.
Right, and he's like, you would put yourself there. If something like that were to happen, or something catastrophic, it's really going to make you think about things. And I'm like, that's why you need to start thinking about those things now, so you don't put yourself in that situation. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of cool. I think he has an open mind about it. And he's like, well, so since you guys do this, and you're pretty open about it, because I showed him the website and I showed him told him about the podcast. He's like, you guys could be a target. He's like, how would you keep people out of your group? He's like, but then you got to have people in a group because you got to have, so he's thinking. Yeah. Because he's like, you got to have people to protect your stuff. And I'm like, okay, so then if you're thinking of a group, you have to ask if someone's planning on coming out, and because people kid around at work all the time and say, I know where I'm going if something happens.
Yeah.
And my response to them every single time is, I'm like, that's fine, but what do you have to offer the group?
Yeah.
If you don't have anything to offer, and I'm not talking about a bag of beans and a bag of rice, if you've got skills and something to offer, then of course you would be welcome. But
yeah, save your 2 cents, because I got that on my list.
Okay. All right.
Go save your 2 cents for
that.
So
I just thought that was a really interesting conversation just out of the blue that happened.
Yeah, and it's cool that somebody's receptive to what you're saying too, because that means there's a chance that they're going to get it. Where there's some people that are just like, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to, I'm going to live my life the way I live it. Something happens. I don't care.
Yep.
So anyway, the first rejection, it's ridiculous and a waste of time.
What is ridiculous and a waste of time?
Prepping is ridiculous and just a waste of time. And I've got my own things to do. I'm busy. I've got this, and nothing ever happens. I'm cool the way I am, and if something happens, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And it's interesting too to me that Americans are the majority of the prepping population. I mean, it's all over the world, but mostly it's the United States. And at the same time, we have for the most part, most people have the highest quality of life in the world. We do what we want. We have the freedoms. We have all of this stuff. And I think that's why that there's more preppers here than there are in other countries, because we have the freedom to see all this stuff, learn about this stuff, and look into this stuff. And we, as preppers, we see, even the people that aren't preppers, see the corruption, the government, people hate politicians, all that stuff. But as preppers, we see a clearer picture, I suppose. So when somebody has the objection that it's ridiculous and it's a waste of time, it just kind of explained to them. This is kind of the easiest one to overcome for the most part, because when you talk to somebody like that, they probably have, like we were talking about with this guy, nuclear disaster, all that. They probably have this idea of, martial law and total just chaos and all that. And
he's not even to that point. He's just thinking nuclear war, nuclear war, nuclear war. He's not even gotten to that part yet.
Yeah. But when they say it's ridiculous and a waste of time, explain to them that, hey, there's stuff that happens every day that we could prepare for, whether that's a power outage, whether that's snowstorms, tornadoes, earthquakes. I mean, everybody's got something in their area.
So, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Just get them on board as far as like, well, you prepare by going to work every day. You have a full tank of gas. That's being prepared.
Yeah, we get insurance in our cars. We don't want to get in an accident, but it happens. So, I mean, just kind of start small is the main thing. Get them away from that big scary monster and start talking about stuff that they can do every day, putting stuff in their cars to make sure, and just get them on those baby steps to getting to the point where they see that, buying extra food at the store, just stuff that you use every day, extra toothpaste, this and that. You don't have to go completely overboard with them, but just say, hey, we're going to use this stuff anyway. Why not have it? Mm-hmm. And if it's on sale, you can save money doing that stuff, and you can make it rational to them. They're like, okay, well, I guess, it is on sale, so if you want to do it, go ahead and do it. And then eventually, it could just begin to fester, I suppose, and they get into it a little bit more. All right, so the second one I've got here is that's why we pay taxes and depending on the government to do stuff. And I think, that would be really nice if it were true, but it's just not feasible. And I think people are so spoon-fed by mass media, and then the government saying, or whoever's talking on TV saying, we've got your best interests in mind.
Right.
And I think that's just a complete fallacy, because their idea of my best interests and my idea of my best interests are totally different.
Yeah.
They're trying to take away rights and do this and that for the best interest of the whole country.
But that it's not in the best interest of the whole country. It's just like if you're going to look out for the best interests of yourself and your family, and that's exactly what they're doing. So
what they believe are the best interests.
Right. Anyway. In their opinion, their best interest is not the same as your best interest and mine. Yeah.
And it always, even if they have, the best intentions, it usually ends up, or sometimes it ends up being a complete crock, disarming the United States. People don't like guns. People don't like this. The loudest voices get fed.
Right.
So the people that scream and whine about stuff, they're the ones that stuff comes to the table. Us, the gun owners and stuff, the preppers, we kind of like to keep to ourselves because we don't want to make waves.
Right.
But then these people, then that stuff just keeps going through. So, but along with that, the government's here to help. That's why I pay my taxes. You can look at things like Katrina and stuff like that happened, right? Mm-hmm. And see that
it didn't go so well.
Yeah. That even if they had the best intentions, they screwed it up, basically. Right. I mean, that wasn't even that big of an event. If you're talking a countrywide event, we're hosed.
Right.
Because there's only so much resources that they have available. And
that's when they send out the people to your doors. I'm from the government. I'm here to help.
Yeah, I'm here to help.
I don't think so.
And that's what, as preppers, we have to be worried about, because if we are on a list and we have the stuff and they need stuff for other people, that's basically what this country is going, that socialist type of, you have something you saved and earned, great, good for you, we're taking some to give to the people who haven't. That's
already been initiated. That's the NDAA Act.
Yeah.
So that's already in place.
Yeah. And it's scary. And that's why, again, I don't think people are going to come out to rural areas. They're going to go, the government only has a certain amount of resources that it can quote unquote, keep the people's best interests in mind. And their idea of 30 million people or whatever, that's not my best interest. That's a complete group, and that's their best interest, to keep enough people happy that it's that continuity of government.
Right.
So people they're gonna go to these hotspots. They're gonna go where the support is. They're not gonna come out here at first anyway.
Right.
I mean, I still think that there are going to be some people that do, but it's not going to be that massive horde, I don't think.
No, I think they're going to be, I paid my taxes. I need help. So that's where they're going to go, because that's what they've been told to do.
Yeah.
And they're going to round them up.
Yep. So you can look at things like that, and even with your friend, talk about, would you rather be in a FEMA camp, or would you rather be out with your parents, even though all their food's going to spoil? It's when the situation arises, it changes your thought process a little bit.
Right.
Okay,
and
now it's here. Now it's not fictional. Now I got to figure out what I'm going to do.
Which is why it's good for someone like that to start preparing now, because then it won't be such a culture shock that if something does happen, that you do have to go out and dig a latrine or something. Who knows? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
If you're starting to think that process now, it makes it a little bit easier if something does happen.
Yeah. Don't depend on the government to help you. It's great when they do, I suppose, and they have the laws and all of this stuff, and that's fine and dandy, but don't depend on it when push comes to shove. It's not going to be there.
No.
It might be in some spots. You might be one of the lucky ones. You might not. And if you're one of the lucky ones, I don't know how lucky you actually are. I mean, it could be a crappy situation.
It'll be a far cry from what you think is your best interest and what you're comfortable with now.
Yeah.
It will be completely different. So
with all the spoiled Americans there too, holy moly.
Yeah.
I need more water than this. I need more food than this.
Yeah.
This is all we have. And riots and fights, and I just don't want anywhere. I don't want to be anywhere near that.
No.
I'll depend on myself, not the government. That's the way I live my life in general, though. Number 3 here I've got is prepping is too overwhelming. And it can be sometimes, especially when you first start getting into everything, and you start reading all this stuff, and you're like, holy moly.
And you just want to stick your head back in the sand
Yeah.
and pretend you don't know what's going on.
Yeah. And some people, they might not express it as it's too overwhelming. It might be their shut-off mechanism, where they're
Right.
just like, you know what, no, I don't even want to deal with it. Or they'll, kids pacify you, nod at you. Yeah, that's scary. I need to text somebody now. But you've got to kind of explain to them, ease them into it a bit. And this kind of goes with the get away from the nuclear bombs and all of that stuff, and just talk about food storage, talk about water, talk about learning some of these skills, the camping and stuff, and
Right.
just the little stuff that they can take those pieces and rationalize them. We got to kind of stop thinking like preppers and think like an average person, and think what is their thought process.
But it's really hard to do, because a lot of the questions he was asking me, I'm like, well, that's just common sense. So it's like, okay,
you
have
think
to
it is because we were in it.
So you just have to take a step back and not scare the person to death, but make it, put it on their level. And
Yeah.
it makes it a little bit easier. Give him little teeny bite-sized portions of the big picture.
Yeah, I call it the curse of knowledge, because anytime you get really good at something, even your nursing job, you get really good at something and you're talking to patients, there's this mumbo jumbo. You and your brother start talking about this medical stuff, and I just get glossy-eyed.
Yeah, but I have to say that with my patients, I don't talk like that
Because
to them.
you know.
Because I know, and I
how
can
to-
see when the doctor's looking at them, and they're
Yeah.
just like, huh?
Yeah.
So then I kind of break it down for them.
Yeah.
But
So you got to speak to their listening, basically.
Yes.
What they're hearing you say.
But that means that you have to get used to me saying, Dale, do you want to see this cool picture I took of this
I'll
foot?
never get used to that.
Awesome.
I don't need to, don't want to. When it's a real life situation, got to deal with it. You
Baby
got to deal with
steps.
it. I don't need to.
We'll look at an incision first, and then we'll look at the pus.
Yeah, I don't need to see pussy festering wounds. Your Pinterest board on pussy festering wounds. I don't even know if you have one of those. I hope not.
Not yet, but you just gave me an idea.
But anyway, prepping being too overwhelming, it doesn't have to be. And it kind of can be. But even as preppers, we learn to kind of piece everything out and kind of segment everything into, okay, I need this now. I don't need this now. While I'm waiting to get the funds for this, I can learn this. But, you just got to explain to somebody, just take what you can. You know what? If this is all you can handle right now,
just do one thing at a time. Yeah, just
do that.
Focus on one area.
Yeah, and you've got to talk to them in a way that they're going to respond to you. Otherwise, you just kind of blowing smoke, basically. They're just going to be like, yeah, whatever. Or they're going to help you that one time, and they're going to be like, the whole time, they might not tell you, but the whole time they're going to be like, this is stupid. Can't believe I'm doing this. This is stupid. Especially kids. I'm sure my kids say that all the time. Our kids. My kids. Anyway, the next one here is I can't afford prepping. And this is a big one too, but you get to the point, and it kind of the same thing is overwhelming. You get to the point where you're like, okay, I can't afford to do all of this stuff that I want to do right now. So what can do?
You just break.
What can do?
Yeah, just break it down into baby steps.
Yeah.
One thing at a time.
Yeah, and figure out the main thing with that is figuring out a budget. And if that, especially with a spouse or something, that might be a great way to break this too, is to say, hey, you know what, we do need all of this stuff, but we're not busting the bank. We're not stopping. We're not selling the cars. We're not stopping paying the mortgage or the house payment or whatever. We're going to figure out how to do this on top of all of that
So
stuff.
You just do it baby steps. And again, don't do the whole culture shock where you're just going to stop everything right now. All of your creature comforts. Just change things a little bit, one thing at a time.
Don't kick the kid out of their room because you need it for storage.
Right.
Don't do stuff that is going to piss your spouse off, basically. You've got to, even as much as we want to do something, and it's kind of easy for me to talk about this with you because we're both the same way. And if you don't like something, you're going to tell me, put it here or put it there. But if your spouse isn't on board at all, it can be a tough situation.
I'm looking at your room, and now your office is like...
Cool? Is that what you're saying?
It is very cool. But you have so much stuff that it's like it's making its way out into my area.
Oh my goodness. No, it's not. It will not go out there. You clean in here anyway, so. But just kind of, I don't want to say like keep it away from them, but keep it to the point where they're going to be okay with it. I mean, find out what their boundary, their threshold is, and kind of push it a little bit, but don't push too far because that's just going to create strife and problems and all of that. Anything else on that one?
Nope.
Okay. The next one I've got is God's going to take care of me, so I have nothing to worry about. And this is, people forget all the time about free will. We were given free will for a reason. And you hear people talking about, somebody dies or a family member dies or something happens and they're like, where was God? Where was God for that one? And it's free will. I mean, God is not there we have to learn.
Well, I think that and a lot of people, in my opinion, that go to church think just because they go to church, they're good Christians or whatever your religion is, so God will take care of them. But I think you have to be, quote, a godly person, and you have to do what he's told you have to do.
Yeah. If you've been warned about something, you need to take action. You need to do something. You don't just sit
there and wait for the rapture or whatever, because I'm sorry to say, but I just don't think that's coming.
Yeah. I mean, what if Noah would have been like that? And he said, you know what? God's taking care of me.
God's going to take care of me.
I guess he was kind of talking to him, but yeah. So it's cool. And then the flood comes and everybody's bobbing underwater.
Theoretically, God did take care of him because God told him what to do.
Yeah, but he listened.
And
that's the thing. It's if you have that feeling, then do something about it.
Yep.
Nobody knows. I mean, yeah, there's the rapture and all that, but nobody knows what's going to happen before that.
Nope.
Or what's going to lead up to that. So why not make it as easy as we can, or help ourselves as much as we can before we get to that point.
And so you don't do the Homer Simpson and go,
don't. Yep. Okay, and the next one, and we'll go through these a little bit quick because we're kind of running a little bit long. But
yeah, Dale.
The next one I have is I just don't have time for that. Everybody's really busy. Everybody's got their work. You can basically, like we mentioned in the last podcast, you can basically make an excuse for anything. But if you really want to do something, you're going to make an excuse or find the way to get that done.
Yep.
And that's, as far as spouses or how you overcome this objection, I would just, say that, it doesn't have to be all at once. Take what you can take and do what you can do. Take the things that you enjoy doing or that they enjoy doing, and kind of push those a little bit, because it's going to be easier to get somebody into something if they're doing something they enjoy.
Right. But you got to be careful, and you're guilty of this. You've got to be careful about pushing your agenda. And if you're a very...
But it's because I'm right.
If you're a very type A personality, if you've got a schedule and it's got to be done, you have to keep in mind the person that you're talking to, whether it be your spouse or someone that's, new to this. You've got to do it on their time frame. You've got to do it,
That's to speak to their listening and pay attention.
Yeah,
Don't
Dale.
be so self-absorbed about your own self that... But even if you know you're right.
Right. Even if you know you're right, Dale.
Yes, exactly.
You've got it.
And even when it doesn't quite turn out that way, don't ever admit it either.
But you just you have to do it on their terms, or they're going to shut down.
Yeah, they are. And that's just plain and simple. They're not going to, if they say they don't have time for something because they've got their schedule figured out, and you can't figure out a way to weasel into that schedule, I suppose, it's never going to happen.
No.
They have their stuff they're going to do. If you make it enjoyable and make it something that they want to do, or phrase it in a way that makes them think, yeah, that wouldn't be so bad, I can figure out that.
Yeah.
We can all figure out stuff that we can do. We can all figure out our time.
Right.
If it's something we really want, we're going to figure out how to do it.
Yep.
This is the one you were talking about earlier. I'm coming to your house anyway. And
Right.
we get this all the time. And my thoughts on this are, when somebody says something like that, I'm like, great. I'm willing to help you get to the point where you can come to my house and you can be a contributing member. But as far as when the poop hits the fan, my doors are closing.
Right.
So,
But I think, and I get to deal with this because I'm out in the public every day, and
I don't
you're
like
here.
people.
You don't like people. But if my favorite answer or response to that is, that's great. What are you going to bring my group? What skills do
What are you
have
contributing
that are going to make you an asset to our group? And I know a lot of people, laugh it off and stuff, but I can see them thinking about it. They, it's the simple question. That's fine.
yeah, and most people are
what
kind of like,
what are you going to bring me?
and when they think about it, a lot of people are like, oh, I gotta do something.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that.
But it's cool because you can actually see them. I've done it with doctors. I've done it with coworkers. I've done it with patients. Then what are you offering?
Yeah.
So what skills do you have that are going to make you an asset for a group in that type of a situation? And I think by even just laying that down, planting the seed, you're making them think about it, and they're hopefully going to have a plan, and they're going, crap, well, I actually have to think about this. So I think that's my favorite thing to say back to people when they say they're coming to our house.
I'd let the doctors you work with come. Dr. Kim. You guys can talk about aliens, and
I know, right?
but he can teach people. He can do all sorts of stuff. Brad and Jamie, they're in.
Yeah.
They're just, whether they're on board with prepping or not, and they're not, but they've got a lot to offer.
They have a lot of
Jamie's got the
skills.
medical skills. She's a hard worker.
She's very
And
anal.
we've talked about these two before.
She's
but
very organized, and she will keep everything organized.
She'd probably drive me nuts a little bit, but it would be worth it.
Yeah.
I'd just go out hunting with Brad.
Yeah.
Leave you guys at home. All right, so I'm coming to your house anyway. The way you overcome that objection is just kind of be nice about it and say, hey, you know what? I can show you what to do. I can do this, but you know what? When it comes down to it, there's no vacancy at my hotel.
Or you know what else you could say? Say that's fine, but what are you going to do if you can't get to my house?
Yeah, how are you going to get there? Because we live in BFE.
Yeah,
So how are you going to get to my house?
if
And
you
she lives on
can't-
the other side of Denver too. So
Right. So if you can't get to my house, you better have a backup plan.
yeah, exactly. That's kind of a good reason why we need to move a little further away too.
Right.
The last one I've got here is, I don't have anywhere to put all my stuff. I don't have the space. I don't have the room. And this is probably a lot of people, especially in an urban area. They just don't. It takes a lot of stuff. If we lived in a little house with your little supply room and my little supply room, it would be pretty packed.
It would, but then that's when you start thinking outside of the box. So, and I don't know if people can see, even your lamp, it's got shelves.
Yeah.
We made these shelves
Yeah.
So it's
create usable space.
Exactly. There's a lot of wasted spaces in houses. So even if you live in an apartment, there's a lot of wasted space. So you just got to plan where you're going to put stuff.
Yeah,
and as you keep accumulating stuff, then you've got to you've got to rotate it. You've got to know what you have all the time, take an inventory, and just keep thinking outside of the box.
Yeah, and there's, again, I'm going to go back to your spouse and everything. If you live in a smaller house or an apartment, you don't want to have your living room look like this. Because
well, I don't. But
if your spouse is not on board, if you're on board, we'll figure it out.
I'm on board, but I don't want my living room.
All my stuff would be in boxes or something, wouldn't it?
No, it might be in a closet. I could still
in
get
boxes because you can't just throw a bunch of crap in the closet.
No, but I could put a good storage system in there.
Yeah, and that's just it. Use that closet space. The stuff above where your coats and everything go.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably some room above. If you have a pair of boots, there's probably 12 inches above that where your coats and your clothes hang. Figure out how to make the most usable space that you can.
Yep.
Under beds, in closets, all sorts of different stuff. So you just got to do what you can do because there's only so much space you have. So there's only so much stuff that's going to fit inside of one box. So you've got to make that, and you've got to keep your spouse appeased too, and not have your junk all over the house. So sometimes that might mean a storage locker, and that's a money issue, but to keep it away from them. And that book, 399 Days, reading that, he got
299 days.
Yeah, 299. Not 100. That's 100 too many, but he got a storage locker anyway to put all his stuff because his wife just wasn't on board. So you can, and until you get him to that point, you kind of just gotta do it. Now, you don't want to really hide that from your wife, I don't think, or husband, because if that comes out, that's a huge fight waiting to happen. So, maybe talk about, hey, I'm getting the storage unit for some of this extra junk, and then maybe not tell them about how much food you have in there or, what's going on, but make sure, that's me anyway. Some people, it's up to you. You're the one married to that person, but that's me anyway. I would want to make sure that didn't come out, and all of a sudden I get home and I get this, you got a piece of paper in your hand and this mean ass look on your face, and I'd be like, oh shit.
So you might as well just get
what
it out
I
in
do
the open.
this time.
Get it out in the open in the beginning.
Yeah.
Don't keep secrets.
Yep, exactly.
Unless you're keeping secrets from the government.
Yeah, that's true. But see, you just said it on live, so now it's not a secret anymore.
Nope.
Now we're going to get the black helicopters coming. Thanks,
Great.
Lisa. They're going to take all my stuff.
They're going to take your enchilada, beans and rice.
They are. All right, so do you have anything else on any of these, or
Nope.
is that it?
That's about it.
Okay.